You know, people like to use the expression think out of the box. To me, forgive me, to me, that's one of the stupidest expressions in the world. Because what if the answer's in the box? No, I only think out of the box. Well, wait a minute, stupid. The answer's right there in the box. So the answer is just think. Think. It doesn't matter if it's in the box or out of the box. Just think. That's all. And that'll work. So when we define,
or there's no box,
or even if there is,
Yeah.
what difference? That's total freedom. Freedom is it doesn't matter if there's a box or not. In fact, greater freedom means that even if there is a box, you'll know when to use the box, how to use the box, and when not to use the box, and when to go beyond the box. So when we, I don't mean this about you, God forbid, but when people worship science, they actually become slaves to science because they think that that's reality. They don't use science as a tool. That's what it is. It's a tool, which can be very helpful by knowing exact details, knowing properties, knowing how chemistry interacts, knowing how much metal can handle stress in order to build a bridge or a building. These are brilliant tools that require amazing accuracy, but they're only tools. So once you come into another realm of reality, those tools go away and new tools come, right? You go back and tell your great-great-grandfather about these huge airplanes that can carry thousands of people, even with all of their luggage, and before they even take off in Beijing, can tell you exactly what time they're going to land in New York. They tell you you're crazy. And then better, tell your great-grandfather, bring him to the airport, show him the airplane with all the people, and say to him, go over there and just push it a little bit. Push it. Move it that much. No way. You know what? Take all your friends. Everybody, come on, let's go. Come on, everybody, come on. Put your hand on the wheel. It won't move that much. All of a sudden, a chink and a chink and a chink and a chink and a boonk and a bunk and a bink, and it flies. Okay? So we know the science. We know how it works. It's true. Those are tools. But if you could make a carpet fly, then if you worship science, you won't have the brain to understand how a carpet could fly. And then when you'll hear about the stories of King Solomon moving 10,000 soldiers on a single carpet, it'll just be fantasy or imagination. You won't, and you'll miss it. You'll miss it because you're stuck in the box of science. It's good to have the box of science. You should use the box of science, but don't be a prisoner to it. You know, there was a lot of intelligence. We have no idea. I mean, we tend to like to be arrogant and think that we are, you know, the ape that suddenly grew, like Darwin said, into the human being. I don't know. Maybe we're a human being and we're heading towards becoming more like an ape. Maybe it's going the other way, right? Maybe you should read it like Hebrew, going that way instead of going that way. Hard to know, right? Everybody's walking around today like this. That's pretty stupid. Smartphones for dumb people. I don't know about you, but when I was a young person, I maybe had 50, 60 phone numbers. I knew them all in my head. I don't even know my wife's, well, maybe her. I don't know anybody's phone numbers anymore because it's all in here instead of being in here. So, boop, I guess she disappeared. Come back, Shaw. I was only kidding. The god of science took her away. Oh, look, she's back. Back from the dead, resurrected. But so I think, you know, that's, you know, there were societies that built pyramids. You know, China has the Great Wall. These are phenomena. I mean, who knows how many things we build today that we think are so incredible. Will they still be around 4,000 years from now, like pyramids? I don't know. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. So there are all kinds of, and especially when you get into levels of medicines, that's where we have a bigger danger, because of course there is science in medicine and we have to live accordingly. But the realm of explanation, of exploration, going back into ancient civilizations, especially China, my gosh, the wisdom of the Chinese on all levels is so phenomenal. To not go back and open up those treasure chests of herbs and natural approaches to all, I mean, of course, everybody knows the gift of acupuncture, acupressure, and all of these things. And we even talked once in the class about the relationship between the tefillin and the acupressure points and so on. But at the end of the day, you know, these are only the doorways to huge oceans of treasure. You know, maybe in your world and in your history and science, there could have been a cure to corona without doing vaccination, just through, you know, natural healing. You know, because in English.
Yeah, point.
Yes, exactly. What's the point? in English, you know, there's a word called disease. Disease is the word dis-ease. Right, exactly. Dis-ease, not being balanced. It's all about balance. It's all about the equilibrium, the harmony. And when something goes away, then it needs to be, right? This, I think we once talked about this. This is actually one of the secret ideas of the Star of David. Does that sound familiar?
Balance?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to a little audio visual. Now you will discover that I am not an artist, in case you actually thought I might be. So here we go. A familiar symbol. Okay, so let's take a minute to talk about this. So Uriel, by the way, that's a beautiful photo. It's really gorgeous. The little flowers coming up in the desert reminds me of Israel as well. So let's take a look at this. You have here two triangles. One is facing down and one is facing up. This here is heaven. Oh, you know what? I'm going to use this as a good way to break away into our class about Passover, getting what is the P in Passover. Okay, so here is heaven and here is earth. Heaven is looking for a home for spiritual or intellectual ideas to come down into the earth, into the world. The physical world is looking for ways to elevate. For example, in the physical world, this might just be a tree. But now somebody takes their mind and now takes the tree and builds a table. So that's something that a person can do by elevating the physical. And the same idea here, somebody thinks of a table and then builds it, right? So this is the two worlds, how they interact, and it's balanced. Now, if all of a sudden down here in the world of people, we become off balanced, we become fascist, we become cruel, or we lose our moral compass going the other way. So then heaven, rather than flowing from the center down, has to compensate, and it shifts to this side in order to bring balance back from here, or it shifts to this side in order to bring balance to here. Because by shifting to here, then to here, this will ultimately bring this to here, and will bring this back to here. These 6 points are the 6 days of creation. The middle point is the 7th point, which is Shabbat, the day of rest. So therefore, again, rest, Shabbat, is about balance, and it's about equilibrium. So with that in mind, we'll go now into what we wanted to talk about a little bit, is the whole idea of Passover. Now, in our classes, if you know, one of the nice things about getting to be this age is you don't remember anything anyhow. So if I've already said this in the past, just forgive me. And for me, it's like the first time. But in Hebrew, we've spoken about this before, that the Hebrew letters, here, I think I even did this, but I'll just do it again. What the heck? Oh, all right, because the camera makes it backwards. So let's find. So this is a funny way to write the number 3. This is a way to write E. This is a way to write W. This is a way to write M. But it's all the same thing. It's just a question of how you use it. So when we say that a Hebrew letter has a numerical value, it doesn't mean it's a Hebrew letter which is ascribed a numerical value. It means that this shape is both a 3 or a shin or a E. It's the same. It's the right brain and the left brain makes one brain. Numbers and letters, they're the same thing. They're just two sides of a coin, numbers and letters. What does that mean? Well, that means that if you're using this part of the brain, which are letters, so if you see 3 letters, there are 4 letters, say T-R-E-E, so you see a tree. But if you're using this side, which is math, and it's T-R-E-E, well, now it becomes an algorithm. Now it becomes a formula. Now there's a science inside. It's kind of like when you were a kid and you went for your first science class and you walked in the room and they had the periodic chart on the wall. You said, oh, wow, I must have made a mistake. I came into the English room. Look at all the letters. I see U, I see C, I see, right? No, T, no. That's not a C, that's carbon. That's not a U, that's uranium. So, oh, but those are the same letters you just 2 years ago learned how to A, B, C, D, E, F, right? No, they're not. That same U, which was from the letter in the alphabet, is now means uranium. So when you look at the 3 Hebrew letters, if you use this part of your brain, it's an algorithm. It's a mathematical equation. So let's take a look at the Hebrew word for Passover, which is interesting because Passover is literally from the Bible story, pass over. The Jews put the blood on the mezuzahs of their house, on the doorposts of their house, and then the angel of death hopped over their house and left them alone. They passed over. The word Pesach, Hebrew now, actually is very similar, although spelled slightly different, to the word Patach, which means opening. There's a connection between the word Pesach as the holiday and also as the word opening, because, as we will see in a few minutes, one layer of the story of Passover, as it applies to every human being in the world, is a spiritual journey of growth. Now, I have to qualify this to share with you something from Hebrew thought. In Hebrew, what's the word? Oh, you're all on mute. Never mind. I'll answer it. The word for pregnancy is leida. Mu'ubar is a leida, somebody who's pregnant. The baby inside is called a vlad. Vlad is the same root as leida. Leida is to birth. What's a child called? Yeled. Because the embryo, birth, and child in Hebrew all are really the same word. Why? Because when an animal gives birth to a baby, in the most extreme case, in a couple of hours, that baby is up and running and moving and going. If you give birth to a human baby, it ain't up and running and going and moving till maybe 18 months later, maybe 2 years later, certainly not talking. So not only that, it's still called a child until the age for a girl of 12 or a boy of 13. This is because women have more spiritual or more, spiritual, emotional maturity than men, and therefore they mature spiritually faster. However, until that point, they're just called a child, which is the same as a baby, which is the same as born, because the birthing process doesn't end until the soul fully enters the body. So therefore, by us, coming back to what he said with Shaw, the body is a garment. It's a vessel. It's not who we really are. It's just what we are living inside until we leave. So therefore, that body that we're in is really a child until the soul comes in. Then it transforms. So this process of that transformation is all a story till the death of a person, which could actually be their birth. I think I've said this before, but there's a very cute joke of two babies, twins, are in their mommy, and they're having an argument. And one baby says, you know, is there life after birth? And the other baby says, nope, nope, this is it. Swim around, you know, in the embryonic sac, because this is all there is. You want to peek out mommy's belly button like a little hole in a window, you could do that. But this is all there is, nothing else. And the other one says, no, this can't be all there is. There's got to be more. And at that moment, the baby in the mommy that thought that there might be more is suddenly born. And the little baby brother or sister who's still in the mommy cries because of the death and loss of his or her brother or sister. Whereas on the other side, where the other little baby whee, comes out into the world, all they're hearing is everyone going, hey, Mazel Tov, congratulations. Oh, look, it's a girl. Oh, it's a boy. Everyone's quickly counting all the fingers and toes, right? And that's what happens. So we have the same argument in this world. Is this it? Is there more to life after this? Many people say, nope, this is it. It's all there is. Just keep swimming. And other people think, well, I don't know. Sounds kind of funny. This incredible creation, and this is it? Just a world of war and stealing and who knows, lies and all the other stuff. We have the garbage we have to live in here just because this is really it. And they pop out to the other side and we cry. We put their car in the garage or the body in the grave, but there's no more driver. And on the other side, all the angels and all of your ancestors are going, hey, you finally made it home. So that's the journey. So how does it work in the Hebrew word for Pesach? We'll start with that. So Pesach has three Hebrew letters, Pei, Samich, and Chet. So we'll break it down on levels. First, we'll go through the letters. The letter Pei in Hebrew is also, as is often when many letters in Hebrew, is also a word. It means the mouth, Peh. Peh is the mouth. Samech, which is like a circle, is from the word somech, which means to support. And the reason it's called support is you see many words with samech always have an idea of circle. For example, you have the word sagur, which means to close. So again, something completely enclosed. You have the word saviv, which means to go around. So again, a closed circle. And you have the word somech because it's completely covering you. It's supporting you completely, not only a little bit, but totality. And then you have the letter chet. Now the letter chet's a very interesting double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can be related to the number 8, which means infinite, right? If you ever, I'm sure you mentioned this before, you ever look at the number 8 and you turn it sideways, it actually looks like the infinite symbol. So the number 8 is infinite. Oh yeah, for sure we do. We talked about this on the 8 candles of Hanukkah. So that's the infinite. On the other hand, the letter chet also is the same word as the word for sin. Chet is sin. It's also related to the word chit or chitim, which is wheat. Now, according to the Zohar, What was the fruit that Adam and Eve ate in the Garden of Eden? Well, first of all, it definitely wasn't an apple, because I don't think they had apples in that part of Iraq, or Garden of Eden supposedly was. However, more likely, according to the Zohar, it was wheat, because wheat, yeah.
WHEAT?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Look, you guys have we chat, so think of the word as we
But that's
eat.
not fruit. That's not fruit.
Oh, it's got a lot of people make a lot of fruit off of the money that's being spent on that. But think of it as we eat. Wheat, we eat. Right? The last three letters of the word wheat is eat. E-A-T. Anyhow,
Okay.
W-H-E-A-T. We eat. We chat. We eat. We do
We
all
chat.
kinds of stuff. Okay? So the idea, though, is that wheat is called the food of wisdom. And I'll actually tell you this in a very interesting way, because, you know, for us, philosophy is worthless unless it translates into real life. Otherwise, you just go off and play mind games, you know, or video games, and then you're dead and you never did anything. So you just ate up all your time on the planet without growing. But if it has something real in the higher world, it has to also be real in the most mundane daily life. Everything is holy. Holiness doesn't start from here up. It saturates everything. So watch. There is a law that if a person is saying a prayer or learning Torah, and they're walking down the street and there's dog poop on the street, they have to be quiet. You can't talk holy things next to something like that. What about another case? What if you're holding a cute little baby and you're patting, and then all of a sudden you hear that download sign, you know, right? And you know that the download just pay dirt. Suddenly that little diaper goes, boop, right? So what about now? You got this little baby here. Can you pray? Can you talk Torah with this right here? Filled with poop. Well, it depends. If the baby has not yet eaten food made from wheat, then it's okay. Like, let's say the baby is still nursing from the mommy. Then that impurity is not impure. It's not called poop. I have no idea how to say poop in Chinese. And I don't even know if most Americans even know the word in English, poop. But I know the word poop. That's what we would say. Oh, you got to poop? Yeah, I got to poop. Okay, fine. So therefore, what is this idea? That since wheat can raise the brain with wisdom, the parts which are not used go down. In other words, it's not all or something. It's all or nothing. It's either positive or negative. There's no neutral. So wheat is something that can elevate, and if it's not properly used, meaning it's excrement, then it becomes negative in a sense, if you will. So therefore, this tree of wisdom, the tree of knowledge, could have been, according to the Zohar, made out of wheat. And that word, chet, is, again, connected to this letter, chet. So what do we have here in the word Pesach? The first thing we have is opening of the mouth. Why is that important? We'll come back to it in a minute. But if you do open that mouth, you'll be able to find the samech. You'll be able to find complete balance, like we talked about in the Star of David. You'll find balance in the sense of mental and physical health and spiritual health. And if you find that, you will be able to use the aspect of the wheat for wisdom and 8 for infinity. It will be a doorway to, when you come out of your body, to continue living. You know, as Jews, we say, very few people who are alive are living, because they're wasting their lives simply running after things that are important, but not that important. Your life isn't that important that you want to throw it away running after money or running after becoming famous, or running after being able to kill millions of people rather than simply thousands of people, and therefore you become a better general. Those are things which are not really important. But rather you want to really grab hold of who you are, open up the door and discover godliness in you and connect to the infinite. That's really worth doing. Here's the sad news. There's a very beautiful teaching that says there are 3 levels of passion. The lowest level of desire, of passion, is for intimate relationships, preferably between a man and a woman. That's the most powerful, the lowest powerful desire is for man and woman to be together. The second level, which is even more powerful, is the desire of rain to come down and go inside the earth and bring up life, food. That's even more powerful than the desire for a man to be inside a woman and to bring out fruit, i.e. a child. But there is a third, and the third is the most powerful desire, and that is the desire for the soul to want to go back inside the body the minute after it dies. And then it's too late. I'll give you an example. When I was a kid in New York and we used to take exams in school, we also each one had our little table and we had our exam and we had our paper and our notes. And when you were done, you had to come up to the front of the room where the teacher's table, and the teacher was there, and you had to take your exam and put it on her desk. So now what happens, you go up there, and just as you're about to put it down, you look over there on her desk, and there are all the answers. You say, whoa, hey, teacher buddy, can I see that paper maybe just for like, a minute? Can I just kind of look at it? And the teacher says, sure. All you have to do is let go of your exam. Because once you let go, you're not allowed to pick it back up. So as long as you're in your hand, you can go back and do whatever you want. But once you let go, that's it. So the only way you're going to get this is if you let go. But now what happens? You let go. And now you get this. And now you're looking at the table where your answers are. And you're like, oh, stupid. I knew that answer. And I know. But it's nothing you can do. So that's what happens. Right now, we think that we see. Actually, we're very blind. Because these little meatballs, which we call eyeballs in our head, only can see so far. And they're very limited in what they see. We think that we can hear. Actually, you know what? Stand next to a dog and hit a pitchfork, or a tuning fork rather, and you'll see that the dog is still hearing noise that your ears that you think you hear can't hear. You think you make noise. Really? Let's turn off the Zoom right now and you talk from Beijing. Let's see if I can hear you. So all these things that we think we do have, and thank God for them, but they're actually limiting. So at the moment when you are no longer locked into here, and now your eyesight shifts up to here, and now you suddenly realize what this unbelievable gift, which is attached to a little clock, and nobody knows when it ends, but it will. When all of a sudden you come out, now you see all the answers. Oh my gosh, how could I have just walked by that poor person lying on the street? How could I have done that? It's funny, actually. Just came back. This is not at all being judgmental. It's just a cultural thing. But I do remember in Beijing, of all places, I was with my friends, and we were going down somewhere in a subway. And it was at that first time going into a subway in China that I thank God that I'm very tall. So I was able to breathe. It was unfreakable. I thought New York City subways, nothing. The only difference, well, actually a few differences. One, people, even though nobody was bumping into each other. It was like super nice and super polite. But there were a lot of people. And the other thing was they had figured out that everyone was walking in the same direction, which they don't do in New York. Because if everyone was going in different directions, forget it. So at least you're like, suddenly for the first time, I felt what a horse must have, ching, 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 with, hundreds of people heading for the subway. Suddenly, right in the middle, and everyone was very careful not to step on this guy, was a guy with like one leg and a little can, and nobody was stopping. I mean, I'm not one to judge, but I couldn't do that. We missed our train. I didn't care. I said, you guys go on without me. He said, wait, you can just stay here by yourself? I said, I don't know, whatever. So there was a little store. I went over, I bought a hot dog, and I bought, I don't remember what it was, a drink of some sort. And I went over and I gave it to the man. That was more important than catching my train. Well, I'm so important. I'm so busy. I'm so above other people. No. God says to me, give a half shekel, a half coin. And it says in the Bible, and if you're rich, don't show off because you can't give more. And if you're poor, don't give me the excuse that you're poor because you can't give less. Because being rich and being poor are both, and this is going to sound crazy, they are both gifts from God. Because God is not impressed with how much money we have. God rather gives us how much money we have and even gives us poverty. He gives us what we need to grow and to learn. So sometimes an arrogant soul has to come back as a poor person because it didn't realize what it was like to be poor. And sometimes a poor person has to come back with a lot of money in order to be able to learn to remain humble even with a lot of money. There's no value in money. There's no real poverty. It's all a question of state of mind and how we relate to each other. So coming back to Pesach, therefore, when we open our mouths, we find stability, and from that stability, we learn how to hold on to the infinite and to use the double-edged sword of wheat for wisdom. But let's go a little bit deeper. We notice that this letter P, or Peh, is one of the most important letters actually in the whole Seder. Why? Because on Passover night, we have to, let's do it differently. Sorry. I forgot where we were for a minute. We were doing the algorithm of the word Pesach. Okay, so now we did the three letters. Now let's take a look at it a little bit more deeper. The last two letters, Samik Chet, spell a Hebrew word, Sach. Sach means to talk. Now in Hebrew, there are many words for talk, and each one of them have a different connotation. For example, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe le'mor, probably the most repeated verse in the Bible. And God spoke to Moses saying. Now, that's weird, huh? Because as Jews, we believe that there isn't a repetitive letter or redundant letter, let alone word, in the Bible. So here there's a clear, blatant redundancy. Why does it have to use the word say twice? Why does it say, so to speak, God said to Moshe saying? Just say God said, period. Why does it repeat it? Because it uses two different terms. It uses the term Vaydaber, which is one form of speaking, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe, that Hashem Vaydaber, we'll come back to that in a minute. And then he tells Moshe, but when you speak to the people, le'mor. Use the word le'mor. Now, le'mor is probably, if you are a parlez-vous français, you will know that in French, the word for love is l'amour, which sounds exactly like le'mor. And that's what the word is. Le'mor means to speak lovingly, with love, the way you would talk to somebody you really love and cherish. Vaydaber is strength. Daber is the way a military officer commands his people. Daber, get it? 100%. Don't wiggle, don't move, just go straight. Vaydaber, that is speaking straight. Now, the word daber is so much about strength, it also infers clarity. That's why, as you know, the vowels in Hebrew are not part of the alphabet, but rather are added peripherally to the forms of the letter. So therefore, you could have 3 letters that mean one word, but by not changing the letters, but by rearranging the vowels, they become another word. And here's a classic example. The word daber, which means speak, is also the same word as dovar, which means thing. The 5th book, thing, like a thing. Like, I don't know if they've stopped printing Dr. Seuss in China like they just announced they are in America, but in Cat in the Hat, you have thing 1 and thing 2. Any thing, any item is a thing. So therefore, davar is a thing. Daber is to speak. The 5th book of the Bible, 5 books of Moses, the 5th book is called Devarim, which means words, or also means things. That's because the speech of Daber is so commanding and so precise and so accurate, it converts from a speech into the actual item. That it's a significance of your speech means that you have mastered that item which is in front of you, right? I mean, for example, how I can't use my American TV references because I don't know if they ever made them over to you in China. But one of the shows I used to love was like a show called Star Trek. And in Star Trek, they always had this one guy, Dr. Spock, who actually was Jewish, and he put on tefillin every day. So they had Dr. Spock, and some alien from another planet would show up, and they would say to Dr. Spock, quick, tell us what it is. And he would like take this little thing and he'd go like woo, 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 in front of this, and he would have a complete reading as to what this thing was. Can we do that? Yeah. How can you get a reading on who a person really is? Not by the way they wear Gucci clothing. That's stupid. Not by if they're tall or small. Who had any choice? Talk to the creator about that one, right? It's a question of how do you know where a person is at? Through their speech. If a person is able to take very deep, high ideas and articulate them in a way that is comprehensible, it shows mastery over these ideas. If you talk to really brilliant scientists or really, really deep philosophers, they are understanding tremendous ideas, but they have such a handle on them, they can actually communicate them so you get it. That's taking from Devar into Daber. So now, who is the big player with the mouth? And therefore, how do we know what a person's soul is? By their speech. Well, there is the king of Egypt, Paro. Paro is the first letter, Pe, mouth. And what are the last 2 letters of his name? Evil, Ra, foul, ugly, putrid, disgusting. He was the ugly mouth. He's the mouth that uses ugly language, you know, using, I don't know if you have in Chinese 4-letter words, but that's a hint in English for bad language. It's called 4-letter words, which of course I always joke because the worst of all the 4-letter words is work. But we'll forget that one for now. That's 4 letters also. But and also play, but whatever. It certainly doesn't mean those words. So a person who uses those kind of words is an ugly soul. A person who makes fun of other people is an ugly soul. There's something not healthy in that soul. So Paro means the ugly soul. And what is the ugliest soul? Somebody who has no room for anybody but himself. Paro makes himself God. And when I'm God, I don't have to listen, as he said to Moses. Who is your God that I need to listen to him? I'm God. I tell you what to do. I tell you what not to do. Wow. Is there a more pleasing experience in the world than to feel you can control another person by telling them what to do? You're the authority. Wow, what a great ego trip. Truthfully, it's very ugly before God. So that's Paro. Paro becomes the king of the evil mouth. And what land does he rule? In Hebrew, we call Egypt Mitzrayim. Well, you probably know in Hebrew that we have letters which we use as prefix and suffix. So the word Mitzrayim, if you break it down, the m or the mem at the beginning of the word is actually a prefix, which means from. And at the end of the word, you have yud mem, im, yud mem, which is the suffix, which means plural. So the root of the word, or the essence of the word of Egypt, are two letters, tsadi, resh, sar. Sar means to be narrow.
Sorry, again, it's like the men, the first man, M, it means from, right?
Yes.
And yud, man.
At the end means numerous. So it means it's from a place of numerous constrictions. That's the word Mitzrayim. A place of numerous restrictions. Everything is uptight. And the king of numerous restrictions and control, because the only way he feels good is by controlling you, that is Paro, the foul mouth. Why? Because it's the greatest irony. Because a person with a foul mouth, which indicates a sick or unhealthy soul, is somebody who does not control themselves. But they're very interested in controlling you. Where it should be just the opposite. Really, we need to invest our energy in controlling ourselves to become a better person. And when it comes to you, it should be open and free and accepting. I don't care if you've got black skin or yellow skin or white skin or red. It doesn't make any difference. We're all made by the same God. Everybody's loved by God. God wasn't making one, oh, look, I got some extra leftovers. I think I'll make Africans. That's not at all. Every human being was made by God. Finished. The fact that some of us are red, white, yellow, brown, black, that's just like colors in a garden of flowers. It just makes the place more beautiful. It doesn't make the white man against the black man like the stupid Americans think about. There's nothing to do with that. It's a question of the soul, which has no color, or maybe the soul has every color. So therefore, I want to make sure I am controlling myself and becoming a better person, whereas I'm open to whoever you are. Full stop. Full stop. Egypt was just the opposite. I'm not at all interested in controlling myself. I want to be the king. I want to control you. So therefore, Pesach comes Moshe to rebel. Moshe is the humblest of all people. That's what the Torah says. Why doesn't it say he was the smartest? Why doesn't it say he was like the greatest prophet? Why is it important to say he's humble? And what does it mean to be humble? Well, I'll tell you what humble does not mean. Humble does not mean to be stupid. Humble does not mean to be weak. Humble does not mean to be a fool. Humble doesn't mean you walk around like this and people take advantage of you. That's stupid. That's not humble. There was a great rabbi in Jerusalem 200 years ago who said the first of the 10 commandments is don't be a fool. So we have to be brilliant. We have to know how to study Torah, and we have to know how to hold a machine gun if we need to do so. We have to live in the real world. Moshe talked back to God. Moshe kicked Paro off his chair. Moshe last week led a civil war of Jews killing Jews at the Golden Calf. So what does it mean to be humble? That doesn't sound like what we think of humble. Well, first of all, humble can be very arrogant if it's really not correct humble. I'll tell you a very beautiful story. There was a yeshiva in Europe a couple hundred years ago where they were known for working very hard on developing their personalities and their character. And so what happened was every day from 7 to 7:30, they would come into the study hall, 300-400 of them, and they would start a mantra. They would chant, I am nothing. Now imagine 300, 400, 500 people, I'm nothing, I'm nothing, I'm nothing for a half hour. That's a very powerful encounter. And some guy shows up for his very first day at the yeshiva, and he opens the door and it's 7:05. And first thing he ever sees is 300, 400 people. I'm nothing, I'm nothing, I'm nothing. Okay, fine. So what does he do? He takes a little chair, he sits down, and he wants to fit in. But he's the new guy, so he's like a little nothing. But then he gets a little confident, a little louder, I'm nothing. After 10 minutes, I'm nothing, I'm nothing. All of a sudden, he's yelling, I'm nothing. And one of the older guys who's been there for many, many years pokes his friend and says, hey, look at that guy. He walks in the door and in 10 minutes, he thinks he's nothing. It took me 10 years before I became a nothing, right? So a person can be very arrogant, also trying to look as humble. So that's not humble either. So what does it really mean to be humble? It simply means to be true, to connect to truth, to love truth more than our ego. I'll tell you one of the stories that changed my life as I became more involved in Torah. I didn't come, as you know, I didn't come at all from a religious background. I'm fourth-generation American and far, far from any connection to Torah. So I'm in yeshiva, and I hear the story of the splitting of the sea. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I hear the story about the plagues. Yeah, come on, let's, whatever. But then I heard something that hit me in the face. Two rabbis in the Talmud are arguing bitterly. And it's going on for a couple of pages. Abaya and Rava. Boom, boom, boom. Each one, boom, boom, boom. Like a sword fight. And all of a sudden, finally, Rava gets the sword right up against Abaya's neck. Meaning, metaphorically speaking, of course, that he won the debate. He got Abaya pegged to the wall. Now, if you were in debate class and all of a sudden you did that, you'd win. You'd take your victory and go home. What did he do? Rava, again, is a metaphor, holding the knife, the sword to Abaya, came around and stood next to Abaya where the sword was and said, Abaya, why don't you answer me by saying the following? Think about this. He'd won the debate, but instead of winning the debate, he came around the table to Abaya and told Abaya, here's an answer that you can use to undo me, to undo my checkmate. Here's a move to beat my checkmate. Who does that? Who does that? Who does that in arguments? Who does that? If we did that, kind of wonderful world we would live in, because those are people who love truth more than being right, because there is no right if it's not true. And it doesn't matter who says it. I'll give you a crazy example. Let's imagine all of a sudden one day, thundering voice comes out of heaven, and the whole world suddenly recognizes God. And at that moment, God says, the envelope, please, like they do at the Oscars when they come out a little envelope and they open it. The winner is, and God announces, which is the true religion? And the voice says, Islam. Well, guess what would happen? Two groups of people would be very, very happy. Obviously, the followers, Muslim, of Islam. Hey, yay! Ha ha, Christians, ha ha, Buddhists, ha, we won, we won. They'd be very happy. You know who else would be very happy? Torah Jews. What? How could Torah Jews be happy? That lifestyle is not at all a Torah lifestyle. You know why they would be happy? because they don't observe Torah because they want Torah to win. They observe it because, to the best of our knowledge, it is really what God has said. But our interest has to be in what God said. So if God comes along and says, you're wrong, it's the Muslims, then that's what we want. We don't want to be right. We want to know the truth. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but I just use that as an illustration for an example of what it means to live loving truth, no matter, even if it's on the opposite side of your belief. And that is only accomplished by a humble person. And that's what Moshe was all about. Moshe was only interested in truth. And that's why the outer letters of his name, Mem He, is the word Ma. Ma means what? What am I? Who am I? What powers do I have? I'm nothing in front of God. And when a person removes that shell, that reveals the inner level or letter of Moshe, which is the Shin, which is the Shin, which is fire, which is light. That's why Moshe had to cover his face, and he came down from Mount Sinai. The light was so intense, people couldn't even look at it anymore. And that revelation of removing the ego and revealing the light is what will topple Paro. That is the beginning of the story. And how does it begin? By the word Sikha. As we were saying before, there are different levels of speech. Sikha is even the most mundane speech. Hey, you know what time it is? That's called Sikha. Pe Sikha. Open your mouth and let out your real feelings. Not what you think other people expect you to say. Say what you say. Say it in a nice way. You know, my friend always said, make sure all the words you speak are sweet because you never know which ones you will eat. So say it in a nice way, but say it from your heart. If you can do that, if you can open your mouth and say, ouch, hey, that hurts. I don't like what you're doing to me. I don't like the way you're talking. I don't like what you're doing to him. I don't like the fact you want to walk by that man with one leg in the subway. I don't like that. That's the rise of Moses. Paro is the id. It's the ego. Two more points and then we'll stop. Where does that evolution of speech lead to? So immediately after Passover, and God willing, next week we'll come back and drill more deeper into these other ideas. I'm kind of going over the surface. So it leads to the counting of the Omer. The Omer were sheaves in the field, and they would cut the first sheaf and they would offer it in the temple, and that would inaugurate the new grain and allow it to be used in food. But the word Omer is also related to the word lemor, to talk lovingly. Le is to, le amor, amor. The counting of the Omer is a hint to coming up a level from talking as sikha to talking as love. Why? What's happening? And how many days do we count? 49. Why? Because there are 49 aspects of time and space. There's 7 positions in time, or we call them days, and there's 7 positions in space. North, south, east, west, up, down, middle. That's the Star of David again. 7 positions. 7 positions of time times 7 positions in space is 49. So when we break out of our hung up world of constrictions, now all the pieces might be broken in our life. Something might have shattered our life that opened the wall, but freaked us out at the same time, traumatized us, God forbid. And now we have to pick up the pieces of our life, every little piece. And we might not see, we might not like what we see. Oh, why did I do that? Why did I say that? And we pick up these pieces like we're picking up poop, right? The favorite word of today's class. So we're like picking up these things. But you know what? You have to pick up the pieces with love. When you're picking up the broken pieces of your life, You've got to do it forgiving and loving and welcoming to a new future, to a better situation, because it's only through love that you begin to heal yourself. And when you have that love, you can give love to others and you can receive their love. But it must begin with a love of yourself, to realize that you are precious and imperative part of creation. You're not an afterthought. You are an initial thought of the Creator, and that's why you are created. And when you appreciate that, each one of those little pieces, we put our lives back together. And then where do we go? What's the 50th day? Well, the 50th gate of wisdom, where we transcend time and space into the world of prophecy, seeing beyond time and space. And on that day is the receiving of the Torah, truth. And that holiday is called Shavuot. Now, again, Shavuot means weeks, 7 weeks from Passover to Shavuot. But it also means an oath, O-A-T-H, O-A-T-H, oath, a vow, Shavuah. That's why? Because Shavuah, an oath, is the highest level of speech. Because when a person takes an oath, they are swearing to the truth, or they should be at least swearing to the truth. So that comes back to the level of daber and davar, that now when I speak and what I do, it's one and the same. Now I've left Pharaoh in the rubble. I am now following Moshe to Mount Sinai. And as a result of being able to go up that mountain, I'm now able to build within myself a person who reaches, as Jews, what we call the greatest compliment, toho kiboro. Toho kiboro means that my outsides are the same as my insides, that what I say to you is what I'm thinking. I'm not saying one thing and thinking another thing. And of course, only God knows if that's what we do or do not do. But I am actually speaking and being one and the same. And that's the highest level of life. And that's also freedom, because a person who learns to love truth never lies. And the problem with telling a lie is it only becomes a complicated spider web. Because now, oh, wait, where did I lie here? And then I had to lie here. Oh, but now I have to make another lie to protect that lie, because that lie and that lie. Whoa, that's how you want to live? Talking about taking baggage on the airplane? Instead, when you tell the truth, you don't have to carry baggage, because every time you say it, it comes out exactly the same. It's amazing. And you don't even need to, oh, what I got, because it's the same. It's the freedom of truth. So when a person learns to love truth and live for truth, that is coming out of Egypt. That is the story, at least for today's class, of Passover. And God willing, in our next class, though, we'll take it now to a whole nother level. So,
Gedalia?
señorita.
Yes, can you explain again about the wheat part? I'm not quite catch up with the
Yeah, for sure. There are many different opinions as to what the fruit actually was that Adam and Eve ate in the Garden of Eden. The Zohar says it was wheat, because wheat is associated with intelligence. That's why we use the example of the little baby. He doesn't have intelligence until he consumes a wheat-based food. So the wheat is intelligent. Now remember, the tree of intelligence, or the tree of knowledge, its full name is of good and bad. So its wisdom has an aspect of good and an aspect of bad. The only tree that produces fruit which is pure good is the tree of life. But the tree of knowledge produces good and bad, as you have in fruit, right? You have a fruit, you have a nut, it has the shell, which is not edible, but it has the food inside, which is edible. It's a combination of good and bad. Don't forget, bad is not really bad. Bad serves a function. Bad only becomes bad when man goes after the bad rather than the good. But otherwise, bad, like a shell of a fruit, it's a vital part of creation. You can't have a nut without having a shell, it would be ruined. So that idea, therefore, of wheat, it has a good and bad aspect, making it like a double-edged sword. Eve wanted to be like God. Therefore, when she ate that, it was an ego trip. On the other hand, you can eat wheat and become humble. That's what we make matzah out of. Matzah is flour, i.e. wheat, and water. Why? Because flour is like earth and water is like heaven. Because in Hebrew, the word for heaven is shamayim. Shamayim is two words, fire and water. It's the shin for fire, and it's the whole word for water, shemayim. So heaven is more water than fire. So we take water and flour and we make matzah and we eat it to show that we can bring heaven and earth together. When we add leavening, that which causes the matzah to turn into chumetz or bread or so on, that becomes the big problem. And that we'll talk about, God willing, in our next class. See, I'm learning how to do coming attractions at the end of my classes. Stay tuned.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye for now. Bye. Good things.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.